Our next speaker is Hugh Leonard, who is a longtime advocate and EHE champion. He serves as the chair of trustees of the EHE Rare Cancer Charity UK.
Good afternoon. Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone. Let me just do the share screen, hopefully. And can you see the slides?
Not yet.
Oh, sorry. Hang on. Maybe this one. Nope.
There we go.
Oh, get rid of that. Okay, everyone, good afternoon. I have got about just 5 minutes or so to very quickly talk about the European research collaboration. So I'm going to get straight into that. There are three entities or organizations at the heart of the collaboration. They are the Istituto Nazionale dei Tumori in Milan in Italy, INT, with the PIs, where the PIs are Dr. Silvia Stacchiotti and Dr. Nadia Zaffaroni. The ICR in London, the Institute of Cancer Research, where the PI is Dr. Paul Huang, and the Royal Marsden Hospital, also in London, where the PI is Professor Robin Jones. The research with this group started in 2020 when we entered into a contract with the aim of identifying biomarkers of EHE. And I'm really not going to say much more here because I think Dr. Zaffaroni did an excellent summary of this, the work to date. What I would say is that the prospective observational study was a core part of this program, building a cohort of patients who have donated blood and their clinical records over the last 2 to 3, 4 years to enable that study to take place. And I'd also say that while GDF15 has been identified as a biomarker, the team have also had some success looking at microRNAs. These are tiny segments of RNA that circulate in the blood. They identified 6 that are differentially expressed between healthy and EHE patients, and one of those is also looking very encouraging, so that's exciting. At the end of the 2 years, the project was going well, and so we decided to extend that for a further 2 years and at the same time expand it. And what we added to the original project was the development of PDX models. These are PDX models are where we take human tissue and put it into mice, and I think Nadia explained that very well in her speech, in her talk, and then hopefully to create cell lines. It's interesting that we've only been able to achieve one PDX model successfully, and it is, as far as we know, the only PDX model in the world today of a progressive EHE where the tumor is actually growing. And that just shows how difficult sometimes this sort of thing is to do. But really important because that cell line, as Nadia explained, has allowed us to already undertake screening of drugs and, for example, do an important assessment of sirolimus versus doxorubicin. That data has been very, very important in the discussions we're having with the European Medicines Agency at the moment, seeking to get approval of sirolimus for the treatment of EHE. This research project is also building a radiological database, a database of images from patients over time with their clinical records. And the objective of this is that experts in the field are going to start looking at these images very, very carefully to try and identify and see if there are really small changes that we have not seen in the past or haven't recognized in the past that could also be very useful prognostic factors. So that's another exciting piece of work. And in the ICR in London, they're using CRISPR whole genome sequencing to look at the genomics of EHE in real detail, also looking for possibly new therapeutic targets. We also added a third project in 2022, and that was the development of a prospective observational registry across Europe. And this is a registry where all the patients who are on it, their data will be input by their medical teams. This is not patient entry data. This is doctor entered data. And the objective is ultimately, obviously, to build a long-term observational registry of EHE. 22 hospitals have been enrolled so far. And this went live at the end of last year, and I think the first 3 patients have now been enrolled. In this study, only patients newly diagnosed can be included in the registry because we don't want to have retrospective data in the study. We want to keep it purely observational, prospective data, which means looking forward. So that really is an overall picture of the research that's taking place. But when we put this slide together, I realized that potentially the most important, not potentially, the most important group in this collaboration actually isn't even on this slide. So if we look at this in a slightly different way, obviously we have all the EHE foundations around the world who are all working. I think Denise did a brilliant job explaining what the EHE Foundation in America is doing, and that same work is going on in the UK, in Italy, in Canada, and in Australia. We work very hard. We try and facilitate fundraising and research and advocacy and help that happen. But we are very, very definitely not the most important thing at the center of all of this activity. The most important thing is quite simply the EHE patient community. And that's a lot of the people who are watching here, hopefully today, and a lot who aren't. And I hope they'll watch this on recording, and I hope we get the chance to talk to them about it. Now, it's possible that quite a few of you will look at this and say, oh, well, yeah, they always say this because they want to make us feel good. But actually, that's not the case. Patients and their participation is absolutely critical to all we do. And I think we can demonstrate that just with a few examples. Let's start with patient registries. I think Denise is going to talk about the patient registry, which is being run out of America, which is for global patient involvement, which is really, really important. I talked about the observational registry in Europe. Those are useless unless patients engage and contribute their information. We talked about the study cohort in the cytokine biomarker study. That is only works if patients engage and enroll in the study and allow their data and information and blood samples to be used. We talk about the biomarker research. Again, that could not have happened if patients hadn't engaged and hadn't provided blood samples. We talked about PDX and cell lines. These are critical to allowing our research to progress and expand. And one of the great things that INT are doing is sharing that cell line with researchers around the world so that they can benefit from that as well. But that PDX and the cell lines has only happened because a patient's tissue was donated. And that's why supporting tissue donation and blood donation through the biobanks in the UK and America and Australia and other locations is so important. Ultimately, we hope that this will all lead to new drugs and new treatments, but none of that can happen without all of this previous work. And new drugs inevitably will need to be trialed through clinical trials, and that again will only happen with patient participation. And when we look at all of this, which is fantastic research, it all has to be funded, and that funding has to be raised. And we have been able to fund all this and drive this work because of the brilliant work that our patient communities have done in grassroots fundraising and with other organizations that have come in on the back of that and see it happening and want to help. What is fantastic when we do all of this is that when patients donate their data and they donate samples and they have the money to drive the research, we find that research interest in EHE is there and it's growing all the time, and it creates positive results, really positive results. Several people have commented to me regularly at how amazing the results are that we're seeing from the EHE research. That in turn leads to conversations about EHE, conversations at ESMO and at CTOS and at ASCO and at other important forums, which weren't happening 5 years ago. All of that builds progress. And the most important word on this slide, almost, it creates real momentum. There is a real feeling that the EHE patient community have created this tsunami of activity that we're taking forward. And what we hope is that that circles back to the patients and gives them hope that these new treatments are coming, that there are new ways that we're going to be able to deal with this disease. So quite simply, the patient community, you guys, underpin everything that we do in our daily jobs, running the EHE charities and everything else. You are the foundation of all we do. And so, you know, I think we cannot say a big enough thank you to what you do. We cannot stress enough the importance that you keep doing it. Please join the patient registry. If you're listening to this and you haven't yet got around to joining the patient registry that Denise is running in America, please do that. It's so valuable. Please engage with the biobanks and help us collate tissue and blood samples that can lead this research to all these answers we're looking for. And so my acknowledgement is really simply to the patient community. You guys are fantastic. You live with this disease day in, day out, and you leave us inspired every day with the enthusiasm and strength you have. So keep going, guys. Okay, that's all I was going to say.